from Sturgeon that he
Yes.
sent out. Because I don't have a recent, that's what I was telling Tracy. I said, it's on my calendar, but it's not a recent one. This one's from Dave. It was just it's just a repeating invitation that Dave sent out probably 2 or 3 years ago.
We are live.
So I may just had the blind
Ready to
dumb
go?
luck, Tracy.
All right. We'll go ahead and call the meeting of the Information Technology Advisory Board to order. And the minutes have been distributed. If you'd take a moment to review those, we would entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Kent, old business.
Digital signage update. We've had a little monkey wrench thrown in there. Bob got the official word from public access counselor, state public access counselor, and digital posting does not meet the letter of the law according to that counselor. Sort of surprising. I had a verbal conversation early last year or late 2018 with the public access counselor, and he thought it would be okay. He was just speaking off the cuff though at that point. So we're going to revisit that here in the coming months. And then the direction boards, once Tony's staff gets caught up with the courthouse construction and other small projects, they'll get those mounted and up around the building. The wiring's there, it's just actually getting the equipment mounted.
Okay, so the plan would be on the digital signage board, then are you gonna have a conversation with somebody from Public Access Counselor just
Yeah.
to find out what the issue is and if there's anything else we can do? It would seem a shame if we've taken the step, got those posted. They work very well, but my guess is they probably have an issue with the fact that it rotates through and somebody might have to stop. I won't even guess, but anyway.
Yeah.
They're popular enough that there has to be some consideration for that.
And there are boards like that in the State House, so I'm wondering how that, they juxtapose that.
Okay. Next item.
GIS planning contours and fees. We did not meet, and Alana has left the county. So we are trying to get our GIS admin in here. So hopefully in the next couple of months we can meet and discuss some of that. Contours, Zach?
Yes, real quickly on that. So I think the last meeting I reported, it was in the minutes, I was waiting to hear back from Kent Park. I did hear back from him a few weeks ago with a slightly different proposal. I have reviewed that proposal. It has 3 different options with some different prices in it. I have a phone call into him because I have some questions in regards to exactly why some of the changes were made, because there were changes made in this proposal that was, at least to my recollection, not consistent with what we talked about, and so I was somewhat a little surprised. So I will work out those details with him and hopefully keep moving that project along, but we are making progress. It's just slightly slower than I had anticipated. But one question I do have, Kent, and you may know the answer to this, has there been any change from the state of Indiana as to when the next LiDAR flight will take place? Does anybody know the answer to that? Because I have not reached out to anyone, or I have not heard either, so.
All right, I have not heard anything.
Okay, does anybody else have any data on that? I will continue to look into that, but yes, it is moving. So I'm actually fairly happy with the progress, and I do have some. Was fortunate enough to have some money budgeted for this year for that project, so I see us moving along with that.
LiDAR flight?
No, just the contours. Now, whether it includes LiDAR or not, I don't know just yet. The LiDAR is pretty pricey, so maybe if we can.
What's pricey?
It depends on how you break it down. One of the options is within,
I mean, just the kind of.
Just the entire county is about 155,000.
Okay.
So, but once I have the details of that, I intend on sharing that proposal with all this board, because I know, Eric, you probably have some interest, and Sally probably does, and maybe some others. But I wanted to get the details ironed out just a little bit further before we send that on. So I will do that as soon as I have it, Eric.
Thanks,
So,
Dave.
yep. That's all I have on that subject, unless there's any questions.
Okay.
The GIS website usability study, the Purdue students were overwhelmed and had to scale back what they were doing. They did a presentation at the end of the year and sort of came to the conclusion that what we're doing is probably the best for our situation at this point in time. The GIS department, in their opinion, needed to get settled before it was decided whether to go one way or the other, or keep a mix of both. No before awards and disabled accounts. No before awards didn't go over as well as I'd hoped. A couple of winners were notified and they declined their prizes. So we've got 3 light-up keyboards that nobody wants. We'll distribute here eventually somewhere. Thank goodness they were on sale. Disabled accounts, there was some initial grumbling, but after discussing our concerns with those people, they understood and got right to it. So there were just a couple.
Yeah, most of the ones that really had a strong resistance to that are no longer employed with the county anyway. So it's more of a non-issue at this point.
Password policy change, Max?
The password policy change went into effect at the end of the year last year. So far, we haven't had anyone that's been extremely resistant or against the policy. At first they are, but once they realize that we're not going to make them change this password every 3 months, they are a bit happier and accept it. We've been changing people's passwords without any issue. Haven't had any real strong complaints from any department heads or anyone else. It's gone over pretty well, all things considered. So.
Server room renovation, it's begun. The floor is gone, ceiling's ripped out over the area where the servers will remain. The new tile floor has been put in place. A lot of the electrical work is done. There's still more to do. We're currently waiting on the HVAC equipment to show up. Our local contractor has not received it at their facility yet. They're hoping next week. We're sort of expecting it to show up somewhere around the end of the year. So it's getting drug out a little bit, but it is coming along. You guys can swing by and take a look if you'd like. Our intern in elections, we brought in David Potts from Ivy Tech to work about 10 hours a week, and he was all over that election equipment. Did a great job for us, really happy with him, and would recommend him to anybody looking to employ him. We haven't really discussed doing that again for 2020. That's something we should probably sit down with the clerk and talk about here the next few weeks.
Especially for this particular election, I think it would be very helpful.
Agreed.
Because I'm sure this will be busy.
And then final under the old business is user agreement. We presented this last meeting, asked you to review it, notify me of any issues, changes, questions, and I've heard none. we have enough to, does this need to be voted on?
Should be, I'm going to guess that will this typically be approved at a commissioners meeting, a public meeting? Do you know? I'll find out.
I don't know.
I don't think you have enough members, do you, to pass this?
Probably not.
So table this until.
Yeah, we'll table it until next. Give it any thought to how this would be, how would it be distributed? You know, be distributed electronically, or
Via iSolved.
so it'll be in the portal?
Yes, sir. Each user would be required to click that little I acknowledge button.
Okay, anything else?
New business, our new service desk manager starts Tuesday. Molly
Oriana.
Oriana. Looking forward to that. She's coming to us from Camp Lejeune. So it's going to be a little bit of a change. Apparently she's originally a Florida girl, moving to Indiana for the first time. GIS admin, face-to-face interviews last week. One offer was made, and I received communication last night that it sounds like she's going to decline it. So we'll look at the other candidates again and go from there.
Okay, what do you do in the meantime with that work that's starting to stack up?
We've got a consultant from BF&S Engineering that's been working typically Tuesdays and Thursdays for us. And he's been available through email during the week if there's been a critical issue.
Has that been enough to cover your needs?
Yeah, it's progressing. He's got a lot of the structure cleaned up, consolidated the databases that were in various locations into one, and is trying to get the permissions worked out on that. I know he's met with Eric and James just this week on some of that, and he's identified the power users. We're going to start looking at training classes to get everybody up to speed on Portal and the ArcGIS Pro. I think the Pro tool is more for the power users, and the Portal is more for the consumption, is the way it's been explained to me. So it's progressing. It'd still be nice to get an admin in here to actually handle it all.
Okay, any other new business?
Pictometry contract. I was looking through it yesterday, and I think one thing I've learned from reviewing it is that we need to have date ranges for acceptable completion for all of our aerial contracts, for our purposes anyway, just because there's a certain time frame that's important around the assessment. It doesn't have to be on January 1st, but it has to be reasonably close so we can deduce what probably happened in the week or two from it. When you start getting months away from the assessment date, it's really hard to, a lot could happen in months, you know. So, and the reason I mention is because we have this deal, right, where we're getting 3/4 inch aerials and upgraded from what previously was 3-inch, right, at no additional cost as part of this like sampling of what they can do. But my personal opinion is logistical issues with that has caused delays. They're saying it's weather, but I don't think the weather's been that bad. I mean,
There was snow on the ground, and
yeah, it's light snow, maybe a couple windy days, but I think it's limited access to the technology that they're offering to everyone. And they say we're not the only ones being delayed. But anyway, they say now they're going to try to capture it in mid-March, and they try to deliver it within 45 days, meaning we'll have access to it. I said sometime in April. He said if everything goes really well in April, which that means to me May, June, July, August. So it's like kind of blown for us. And my thing is like, are they going to catch up the next time? Are we gonna fly? Are we gonna get access to aerials in summer and then start flying them again? like around December, when it just seems like if they catch up, we're gonna have 2 flights that are like back to back and they're expensive. So I guess where I'm at with it now is, one, I looked at the contract, doesn't seem that there's any date. Like if they fly it in the year, they say they're gonna fly it, and it seems like we don't have a lot of teeth to be like, this really isn't very functional for us. I'm hoping though that we could revisit it with some common sense and be like, you know, this is kind of like a promotional thing, but it seems to have more of a damning effect. Like great aerials after the effective time frame's not as good as the aerials we have been getting when we need them. I don't know if we can get some kind of discount if we are going to do back-to-back, or if you guys want me to ask for it, because I'm the office that's most affected by it, I feel like. So I have no problem going and be like, yeah, as someone who's like funding half of this, you know, for the purposes of reassessment, written into our reassessment plan and approved by the DLGF, it's not functional for that purpose. I'm not saying we don't want them or they're not functional at all for us, but I would almost like to see that money put in a fund to pay for LiDAR than have back-to-back aerials. I'd just say like, hey, can we just fly them, you know, wait till fall, as soon as the leaves fall off, fly one, you know, late in 2020 rather than mid-2020 and late 2020. I've just kind of split the dates, you know, because I don't know what they are if you average it out, isn't it like, what do we pay, $250,000 for 4 flights or 5 flights?
It's a 6-year contract, and they were around 100,000 a year, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money that could be allocated to some other cool aerial. It could be, I'm not saying like use it from the out, we allocate it to more GIS things, do cool stuff with the aerials we have. You know, we've had good success, and I'm working on some return on investment calculations for things like projects where we compare like assessment sketches to what exists in the field and stuff like that, or invest it in LiDAR, or, you know, try to clean up some section corners or whatever. Anyway, we have some time because it sounds like they're not going to even try to fly it till, and I guess one reason I don't believe their story too is because like we'll get to it maybe like in mid-March. It's like, okay, if you've had bad weather, but the weather's going to be bad for the next 3 months, like that's it just seems like a weird prediction to make, like, oh, we're not going to have good weather in the next 3 months to fly it. Like there'll be no time in February to fly it, you know, weather permitting. So I don't know.
Well,
And I think if they get
leaf-
parts of the trees, they're screwed.
The leaf cover last fall, there wasn't enough leaves off until right around Thanksgiving. We were trying to get them in there at least for the Purdue IU game, and you know, thought that'd be neat to have that crowd there in the stadium, and
Yeah.
and they were pushing hard for that. And then of course it started raining Friday of that week, and rained all weekend, and they couldn't get up in the air. And then it got cold, and they had snow show up in December.
Now that you mention it, though, they did fly that, and they said that they did do some flights, and they
They're
have
about
some.
20% done, is what I.
They didn't tell me. They said they did try to fly sometimes, and they did do some of it, and that they could maybe provide it, what they have done. And I said, depending on what you did and how, like, I mean, if they did a good comprehensive area that is part of our plan to work on, I mean, we could probably make it work. But so yeah, I guess we will wait to see if they reply, like what they do plan on returning in like weeks, and what they plan on flying in months. But just anyway, in the future, I think all aerial contracts should have stipulations for like when they're going to be flown, and what happens, you know, even if it is due to nature, maybe even no fault of their own, but the bottom line is if we don't get them, you know, we either have to like get a credit for some future flight, or just refund it and allocate it elsewhere, in my opinion.
Or upgrade
Upgrade the next imagery, something. But I was hoping the contract had more teeth. But next time.
Sounds good.
Anything else? Any other business?
That's all I can think of offhand.
Anybody else on the board? Anything to add?
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Next meeting is
3 months is April 17th? Is that the Thursday?
16th.
16th?
16.
April 16th, 9 a.m.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody sign the sign-up sheet.
James set up so we could have splits in Beacon. What happened to it? It doesn't work. I couldn't get it to work the other day.
Really?
Unless I'm doing something wrong, but I clicked on splits and
Saw it up there, and I was hoping to see.
Yeah.
So we'll have to
Yeah.
put that on
Oh.
the, we need to put it on the board, or I'll find out if we have to approve it, or.
But Sally about it, and then.
well, James did it.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, but I couldn't get it to
We really
work.
need to have
But that
a
was a couple days ago, so
motion and everything
Steve,
by the
Yesterday
board
was
before the
working on
month.
Steve saw
But
it.
he said it was wrong. He said like a lot of the voting stuff that we pulled, like you know,